born and raised in the town of Orange. Lived on Landon Lane Extended all throughout my life up until I graduated from high school and went off to college and then moved back.
So many young people today and in the past who graduated from Orange County High School never came back. What brought you back?
It's home. It's also a community that's provided a lot to me, that means a lot to me. And Central Virginia is a beautiful area, and I think this town has a lot to offer. You just have to give it a chance.
Right. You were able to find work here?
So I actually work in Northern Virginia, but this has always been home for me. So I wanted to make this home, but I ultimately do work up in Northern Virginia for.
Now, do you work in the EMS field?
Yeah, I work for the fire department in Prince William County, and I've been up there for a number of years now. I've also worked in the Charlottesville area for the fire service too. So I've been in the fire department for a number of years, in a couple different jurisdictions. And
of course, you're wearing your uniform for the Orange Volunteer Fire Company. We want to talk a lot about that.
Sure.
It says established in 1921, but we all know it's older than that.
Yeah, the official date would be 1921, and I think you could almost say that the records would go back even further, because even back in the earlier 1900s, I think it was 1908, there was a fire. And there had to have been some sort of community effort to mitigate that emergency. I know that they did have other departments from outside of the area, specifically the city of Charlottesville, in that early 1900 fire that assisted. But I think you could argue that despite the formal establishment, there was an effort from this community even before 1921 for a fire service.
Those were the days of the bucket brigade, weren't they?
That's correct.
Firefighting has seen a lot of changes since then.
A tremendous amount of change. Changes in tactics, changes in technology, just changes altogether. Even not to get into all the details, but even just in the building construction that we're seeing today is so much different than what we were seeing back in the early 18th, 19th, 20th century.
You've been with the fire department how long?
This is my 20th year.
20 years ago, what was the fire department like?
20 years ago, the fire department was, honestly, I would almost say that the fire department, we've seen changes over the years in tactics and technology and so forth, but the fire department, I think by and large, has been very similar to what it was even 20 years ago. I feel like it's been very similar. Busier is probably a change that we've seen in 20 years. Volume has increased. The demand from the community has increased. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just kind of a normal expectation that you see in communities that have either slow growth or even fast growth. Growth is going to force the need for increased fire service.
It seems to me that the old-fashioned house fire, there's fewer of them, but there's more calls.
There are more calls. We are kind of a jack of all trades. There's a lot of things that we're called to do that we may not have been called before. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years plus ago. And some of that is EMS, the EMS service. We do a supplement EMS service. But I think some of it is just, if no one else can fix it, we're the ones that are called to fix it. And that's kind of become the expectation of the fire services, fix my problem. And that's what we're there for. It could be help me get up off the floor. It could be I have an alarm. It could be I've locked my keys in my car and I need help getting inside my car. It's a whole facet of things that we're called to do, from the worst emergency to even something that just seems like a run of the mill.
Like rescuing a cat out of a tree?
Sometimes it's even rescuing a cat out of a tree. Yep.
There is something about a fire department that makes it core to a community.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could just talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'll use this department as an example. I mean, 1921, we're now at 101 years, pushing for 102. And we would not have the fire department that we have today and that we've had over the last 100 years had it not have been for the people in this community. And I think that speaks volumes. You can look all around at communities that have seen loss of their volunteer fire department, and this community is so unique in that, and it's an anomaly. It's a very special thing that this community should be proud of for its support, and not only the people, but also its support to the fire department in general. That is something that I can't really put a good reason why. It's just, I think it's one of the attributes to this community and its success of its fire department. So,
volunteers versus professional firefighters, where does the Orange Volunteer Fire Company stand as far as that's concerned, as far as answering calls is concerned?
So we're still a 100% volunteer fire department. And that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are still all volunteer. We do have paid within the community, even within the town, there are paid. And there's a working relationship that we have that is really core to making sure that whether it's someone that's getting a paycheck or whether it's somebody that's volunteering their time, it doesn't matter. The core goal of both individuals, for that matter, is to fix the problem and help the people that called for our service, and that's our core goal.
Where do you see the fire department maybe 10, 20 years from now?
Oh boy. I think one of the biggest changes that we're going to continue to see in the fire service is keeping up with the growth, the demand, and with all of that, the adaptations that we have to make to maintain the absolute best service that we can. So I think you're just going to continue to see changes. We're going to have to make changes in the fire service to keep up with the changes that we're seeing within our own community. And it's, I don't ever like to be one step behind the curve. I always want to try to be one step ahead of the curve and being able to anticipate what those changes are, and how we can keep up with it.
The nature of emergencies, will that change too, do you think, in the future?
Yeah, I think the nature of emergencies could change. I think no matter what, there's always going to be a common set of emergencies that we're always going to be prepared for and always understand. But they're going to be things that we may not know how to fix without continued research and advancements in technology and those sorts of things. Because whatever changes happen in the world, we have to adapt to. Whether it's new advancements in car technology or changes in the building construction or whatever the case may be, we have to adapt to that. And that's where, when I talk about kind of being a step ahead of the curve, that's where you have to be prepared for those things.
Right. For example, would be hazardous materials.
Hazardous materials. Another example would be, you're seeing a lot of electric cars. Just using an electric car as an example. 20 years ago, there was no such thing, and if you did have it, you just didn't see it, right? But now we're seeing electric cars all over the place, and that completely changes what we do if we have an accident where we have to cut somebody out, or we have a car that's on fire. It completely changes things. Lightweight building construction. 20, 30, 40 years ago, there was no such thing as much of lightweight building construction. But as you're seeing changes in the way the building industry tries to make things more energy efficient and build it faster, quicker, cheaper, we have to make changes in the way that our tactics, because our tactics can't be the same as what we were doing in the 60s and 70s. We have to make those changes.
Yeah. So it's not a matter of just rolling out of the fire department doors and spraying water on something.
It's not,
as soon as you get there.
Yeah, exactly. It's water on the fire is always a great thing, but sometimes you have to do a little more, and those are the things that we just have to work towards and make preparations for as we see the changes and what this community has in store for us.
And the training requirements become exponentially
They do.
more time consuming.
Yep. And that's probably one of the biggest commitments that an individual makes, whether they're paid or volunteer. It doesn't matter. The expectations are the same, and the training requirements are the same. We have a core set of training requirements that we have of someone, but then beyond that, it doesn't ever stop. My 20 years never will change as far as what I'm trying to do to train myself to be ready for the next emergency.
Any memorable calls that you've been on over the past 20 years that you'd like to tell us about?
So I think, without saying one specifically, because 20 years of running calls in this community and in the fire service in general, there's a lot that I've experienced and that the department has experienced. Some of them are not ones that you remember, but I think the one thing that I remember the most, and I always cherish the most, are the calls, without having a specific example, are the calls where you see a good outcome. Where you lay hands on an individual that may be in cardiac arrest, or you put those tools to work to cut somebody out of a car that is on death's door, and then you find out that they made it out of the hospital, that they made it home. And I think that's what drives me. That's what drives the fire department. That's what drives the individuals in the fire department to do what we do, because that's the ultimate goal, is to create a community where people feel safe, to create a community where people have a good life ahead of them. And if we can help fix that, that's what we're there for. And that's what I remember. I can think of dozens of them, but I remember always having the opportunity to give somebody a second chance.
That's great. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think the only thing that I will add is this community has been a tremendous asset to the fire department. It's been a tremendous asset to me, or else I wouldn't have been here for the last 36 years of my life. But our fire department is we are what we are because of the town and the contributions that the town has made, town council, local government, but also the people within the town and the surrounding community in Orange County. We are what we are because of what this community has provided us and provided me and provided all of us in the fire department. It's what makes this community such a special thing.